All right, hello everybody. I'm starting my stopwatch here. I want to make sure I stay on time here. My name is Joel. You guys probably seen me before, but if not, hello. I kind of fill the role of producing kind of this project. It's not wasn't necessarily something I intended on doing when I set out. I still love doing a lot of work in Unreal. I am nowhere near as adept at it as Lenny, but I really enjoy doing a lot of coding stuff. I've been doing that for the Dream Tank experience, which we've been working on the side. But I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about what it looks like kind of on the producing side of a video game, primarily because I didn't know a lot of this stuff when I first started out. So hopefully some of the information that I can communicate to you guys is helpful to help you in the creation of your games, particularly looking at contracts and what it looks like to do contracts between people who are working for you, and then contracts around the people who are working together collaboratively. We'll talk a little bit about schedule and how we've approached building our production schedule. We'll talk about our how we've approached doing um, the marketing and kind of the core description of the game, just so we kind of always were working in the same direction. And then lastly, a very tiny little brief teaser about music and how we've approached music production as well. So diving right in. So contracts are one of those things that are very often overlooked by anybody who's interested in doing anything, whether as somebody who's has people working for you, or maybe you're working for someone else. Oftentimes contracts can be the kind of thing that gets forgotten about, or you have a verbal agreement about something, but you don't really have to look very far to find out how verbal agreements can really end up screwing somebody over. And so contracts, even informal contracts, are really something that is very beneficial to protect you as an employer of somebody else's talents and skills, and also for the employee to know that, hey, they're covered and these are my expectations and all that sort of stuff. So we have a couple different contracts that we employ. Some of these things I have written by finding examples of other contracts and how other people write their stuff. And some of them we have signed as well. I can't show you those, but I can show you ours. So we use Adobe EchoSign. I can pull open a little thing of it real quick. And Adobe EchoSign, sign.adobe.com. Is this a really great way where you can do electronic signatures? So you can send information out for somebody to sign, and they can digitally sign it, and then Adobe can verify that they signed it at this date, at this IP address, all that sort of stuff, so that it is verifiable via if there was any litigation that was to come up. So first of all, we usually run our contracts through Adobe Sign. It's really easy to set up and use. I highly recommend it. But I figured I'd show you first. This is what we call our crew deal. This is a production term that we borrowed, and it is pretty much as informal as it gets. But oftentimes when you're looking at contracts, you really don't have to be a lawyer or to speak a massive amount of legalese in order to be able to have a contract with somebody. Even if you're writing out things in layman's terms, often that's enough to say, hey, look, here's what I'm doing. This is what I want you to do. This is how much I'm going to pay you. This is how much I expect you to work, etc. We'll break it down real quick. And that can often be the difference between a massive problem and then a safe and secure environment of working. So real quick here, we have two different things. This is for the person to sign out. It's their name, their address, where they live, their phone number, and their email address. It's just contact information and something that identifies that person. And then the next thing is, this says film title, but for us it's a game title. So what's the title of the game? In this case, it's Killer Bunnies from Mars. What position is that person that we, Studio 229, are going to hire? What time are they starting? When does this contract, this work period start? And then what's our estimated finish date? And the reason why we use estimated finish date is we're saying, okay, look, we're wanting to get you done by this time, but of course there are things that may cause that to go later, and that's covered in the contract as well. Rate, it's good to just spell it out, like, hey, I'm going to pay you $5 to do this thing. And then the person says, I need a little more than $5. And you say, okay, $6 I'm going to pay you. And then you'd put, hey, I'm paying this guy $6 here. Additional terms, this might be something that we use to write out, hey, look, this is, we are going to pay you this much. The position says here, I'll usually use this line as saying, this person's being hired as, or well, here it would be, hey, they're being hired as an animator. And then this line down here would say, may do some rigging as well. Something that's just like, hey, look, we know we're hiring you for animation, but you might be helping us with some rigs, and that would be great. And then screen credits. It's always really important for people to know, hey, am I going to get credit for this work or not? And will my name appear in credits or in connection with it? Can I use it on my reel? All that sort of stuff. So we just put here screen credits, and then it could say yes or no, or maybe it's up to the client. Like, we can't control whether or not they want the credits. So we'll put, will be determined or to be determined here. So then just a couple quick breakdowns of the contracts that we've written for other people. Deferred wages, we just talk about, hey, how are we going to pay you? We at Studio 229 like to do a 50% deposit up front if it's somebody we've worked for. If it's somebody we haven't worked for, maybe we'll break it up into payments of 25%, 25 as a deposit, and then every month or whatever, we're paying you an additional 25%. Whatever it is, I'll make sure I write down the terms of it here just to make sure that they understand, hey, here's where I can expect to get paid. We mentioned, hey, this is an exempt employee, like you don't work for us as a full-time employee. We're not going to pay your taxes. We're not going to, help you with your 401k or whatever. You're literally exempt as an employee. You're just purely a contractor. The next thing is, hey, nights, weekends, holiday work time, like you set your own hours. We're not going to manage your hours. You can choose whether you want to work during the night or the day, whether you want to work on a holiday, whether you want to work on a weekend. It's up to you. We don't manage that, but we are expecting you to complete the work. So complete it in your own time. Just make sure it gets done. And that's also said here, work for hours. We will not manage work hours, meal breaks, or weekends. That's up to the employee itself or the contractor. Purchases, we say, we're not gonna cover any purchases. So if this guy says, I need a better computer, will you buy one for me? It's very explicitly said here, no, we're not gonna buy a new computer. If you'd like to buy a new computer on your own dime, absolutely go for it. The next thing is very important is exclusivity, is that, hey, while you're working for us, we don't want you getting another job with somebody else. So you're contractually obliged during this period of time to work for us and to not work for anybody else. Credit, we just mentioned, hey, here's the screen credit that you'll get. Term, this is just very important, is to just say, hey, you're going to be working for us for this period of time, and you're going to let us know if if you're leaving. You need to give us 48 hours advance notice, and us to you as well. So if we say, hey, it's not working out, we can, in this contract, it says we have the ability to terminate your employment with us with a 48-hour notice. Couple other small things. Work for hire. This is pretty important for us, is to say that because we're hiring somebody as a work for hire, we own all the copyright. We own all of the copyright, the trademarks, all that sort of stuff. We are hiring you to work for us, but you will not own any part of anything that you create, other than we're exchanging money for what you create. And that's very important to put in there, because you don't want somebody that you hired to do a couple of background artwork, and then your game that you release is a commercial success, and then the guy who's doing your background art sues you and says, I did all this work for you and you never paid me anything, and I own the rights for the trees that I made and all that sort of stuff. It says, no, and here in the contract it says we own everything that you create. It sounds really like bad to be an employer to be like, I own everything you make, but really that's what you're doing. You're paying them to create stuff for you, and in exchange, unless you are offering them a share in the revenue of the game, then you want to make it explicitly clear that, yeah, what you make for me, that's it. We're trading money for assets, and that's the end of our agreement. Non-disclosure as well, as we just spell out, hey, we don't want you to tell other people about the work you're doing. We just want to kind of maintain that on our end, and we don't want you to say, put on Facebook, concept art that's specific for the game. Like nothing, basically, we don't want you to release anything that could damage the game's, just keep it secret, basically. And then after, we just put in here, after it, when you're done, you can feel free to use any work that you specifically created during this project for use in your own personal promotion, to gain work, to gain future employment, all that sort of stuff. It's up to you, but but don't release anything before we say you can, basically. And then arbitration is just talking about state of California, where all this stuff can be done. And then, yeah, employee accepts all this stuff, revised to you, and then agreed and accepted. And then there's an opportunity for signatures. And if you use Adobe Sign, the signatures are digital. This is it looks kind of complicated, but I actually just kind of wrote this based off of other stuff that I saw. Literally Google it. Google work for hire contracts and just copy and paste and edit the words. You know, are there legal loopholes? Yeah, legal loopholes. If you do that, absolutely. You know, I'm sure that some lawyer out there could punch a bunch of holes in your stuff. But having this is better than having nothing. This is something that can be interpreted as, hey, here's the intention of this contract. We want to make sure you're working within it. You know, whereas you can come down here, this is the collaboration agreement that was actually written for us by our lawyer, our company lawyer. I'm going to scroll through it real quick, and you can just see it is filled with all kinds of legalese that very specifically documents exactly what is going to be covered, what isn't covered, all the terms and all that sort of stuff between us as a company and between Lenny. Now I'm going to tab away from that because I don't want you guys screen capping the Gordon. Exactly. If you're getting into a place where you have somebody that wants to have an ownership share in the game that you're releasing, maybe you're splitting the profits 50-50 with this person, then it is a really good idea to get a lawyer who can write up what's called a collaboration agreement. And I just want to show you guys real quick. Here is, we started out with a Google Doc. And we basically worked together with Lenny to say, here's kind of what we want to say in layman's terms of this thing. For example, this project is shared a collaborative effort. Here's our breakdown of ownership. We're bringing on this game as is, all that sort of stuff. And basically that collaboration agreement became the foundation for what we then gave to our lawyer and said, hey, look, here's what we want to do. So that way the lawyer didn't have to write it, completely from scratch. We just said, hey, take our layman's terms, turn it into legalese, and then we all assigned it. So when Lenny came on board with us and we talked about how we're divvying up the shares of Killer Bunnies from Mars, what we're going to do in the future with if the game is a commercial success, what do we do if the game isn't a commercial success? Who buys the hardware? Who's providing the software? All that sort of stuff is all laid out in that document, purely because we want to make sure that we're covered. And Lenny actually himself told me something that was really great, is imagine that you're making a deal with the devil, right? Like the devil himself is on the other end of the contract. I don't know why he said that about us. I'm kind of curious if he's trying to slip something in there.
Because you're devilishly handsome.
Devilishly handsome. I'll take that. I'll take it. And that's the idea of, like, if the other person on the other side of this contract is wanting to screw me over, what could they do? What would they be able to get at if I did or didn't do this? So don't be super afraid of it. There's plenty of lawyers and legal advice that you can get. I would recommend looking locally first and finding a lawyer who might be local and say, hey, I'm creating this game. I may not have a lot of money. I have a little bit. Would you mind, how much would it cost to create a collaboration agreement, or how much would it cost to create a crew deal or something like that? And then you know that you're covered, because in the event that your game is a commercial success and it takes off and explodes and it's the multi-million-dollar game, you don't want to have been like, if only I would have spent X amount of dollars creating this agreement, then I wouldn't be in the legal headaches that I am now. So it's a good idea to really kind of make sure those things are secure. I know this stuff sounds really boring, but it's really important. I've learned to appreciate it the more and more that I'm doing this, because it's not something you want to just kind of throw away to the side. And then another thing too is to make sure that your game is trademark free. And this is something that's actually been really big for us right now. We are in the process of actually hiring a trademark lawyer to look at Killer Bunnies from Mars, the title, to look at it as content of the game and say, okay, is there any other game out there that's like this? Is anyone creating something there where we say Killer Bunnies from Mars and they think about an entirely different game? Or an entirely different IP, an intellectual property. We don't want to be in that position where somebody could sue us and say, hey, we're the owners of Killer Bunnies from Venus, the game, and we're suing you guys because you're ripping off of our trademark and all that sort of stuff. So what we're doing is we're hiring a trademark lawyer to really evaluate our game and say, okay, is this something that is unique, that in a court of law, no reasonable person would be able to say, yep, this is an identical copy of something else. And although that is an added expense for us to hire somebody to do that, we know that we'll have the legal standing where if some guy was to say, I was making a Killer Bunnies from Mars VR game, we know that we say, look, we actually did the due diligence of finding out, is this game something that is unique, something that is trademarkable, something that we can apply for a registered trademark, that little circle and the R in it. And that's very important for us because as we start to look for investors or as we start to look at licensing deals for this game, we want to be able to assure our potential partners that we have done the work to make sure that, hey, we're not infringing on anything and we can prove it, because that is going to be something that an investor is looking for. So if you've got a game and you're wanting to release it or you're wanting to sell it to somebody or whatever it looks like, it may be worth it for you to evaluate and to try and find a trademark lawyer to be able to say, hey, look, here's your game is really, really close to this game, or your title is really close to this other property. If you're creating Pepsi VR, the experience, there's obviously going to be a big problem because of the Pepsi brand. You're going to have to create something that is entirely different and distinct and recognizable, separate from like the sugary drink. So that's what we're in. I'll probably be giving you guys more updates as we go through that journey. If you do need contact information about these lawyers and or help maybe finding them, reach out to us. You know how to get in touch with Lenny, and he can forward it to us. So that way we can maybe even give you some tips on how to do it. But we want to make sure that we take this seriously now in this early day, because if the game is a commercial success, we want to know that we're covered. My gosh, that's 16 minutes.
No, man. Keep going.
Should I keep going?
Keep going. Show them
I should have cut this up into a lot smaller things. All right, let me show you real quick the production schedule. So this is something that we're working on. There's a milestone schedule here where we first said, okay, look, this is where we want to be by this date. I'm not going to show you the milestone schedule because it's got some secrets in there, but I will show you the production schedule that's update as of this week. And basically, we've broken it apart into each person. So we've got Cobalt, Lenny, Daniel, and Joel. Look at mine right here. Bunch of question marks. Nobody knows what I do. Should make this full screen. But you can see here, we're basically tasking out, hey, here's what we're doing. And the reason why we're working with the production schedule is because we want to make sure that we can hold ourselves accountable to, hey, this is when we say we're going to do these things. This is where we're at. We're updating this like last week, so we know, hey, what was actually going on. So for example, if I look at Cobalt and I look at today, he's working on city modeling, and he's going to be spending the rest of the week doing city modeling. And then next week, hopefully he's starting to do look development and then go into actual materials for the city itself. So we can start to see, hey, where are things slipping, where are things going well, all that sort of stuff. We have our milestone 2 here, which is the week after this. Milestone 2 should technically go over here. I'll just make a quick edit. Well, if I could use Lenny's keyboard. Milestone 2 is happening the week of the 19th. Or Friday's the 19th, but anyways, this is our beta version where we're going to have a beta build of the game, and so that's really important for us to go to, and there's no way for us to know that we're heading in that direction unless we have a production schedule. So we have our milestones, which is a very big picture, not detailed. Here's kind of semi-detailed, and then each day we go into a detailed breakdown of here's what I'm going to do today, this is what I'm going to get done, all that sort of stuff. Moving right along, here's our core concept. I showed this to you guys a little bit before, but one thing that we did at the very beginning is we set up our synopsis and our description to really say, hey, look, if we are going to create a Steam page right now, what would it say? The one sentence is an overwhelming, comedic, fast-paced shooter pitting you against waves of vicious, fluffy, wuffy bunnies. Like, if I only had one sentence to try and communicate this game, that's what it is. That's our synopsis. And then we do a little bit of a paragraph description to try and break it down. And then we looked at who, what, when, where, why, how. We looked at the core keywords and phrases. So if we were going to break down the keywords that would describe this game, what would that be? And then we even started to say, what's our core look and feel? how break all of these things. What are our weapons? How are we going to present this game? Just as a big picture, like are we presenting this game as a serious game? Are we presenting it as a silly game? How are we going to present it? All those sort of things. And then we broke it down in each different outline. It shows us, hey, here's what we're going to need to do. Here's what we're going to need to create. So we spent a lot of time putting this together kind of in the pre-production phase. But even if you're already in the middle of doing a game, I would encourage you to take a break, write this stuff down, because it'll help even you remember, hey, what is this game? If I had to describe it in a sentence or one paragraph, how would I describe it? If I was going to market it to somebody, how would I market it? And that lets you get a really good big picture of like, yeah, here's what I'm trying to accomplish in the creation of this game. So we use that, and this course synopsis, we literally read it every day for almost a week, probably 2 weeks actually. Say, does it flow off the tongue? Does it sound well? We told it to other people, asked their advice until everybody's kind of like, yeah, I feel like I understand what you're doing with that. So that's something that we did. Gosh, 20 freaking minutes.
Oh, yeah, you're good.
Finally. I know, I might need to cut this up a little bit. Finally, the last thing is music. So it's very important to hire a music guy to do your thing. We've got one here. He's already pulling out some mad music skills. We'll probably do a little bit of an introduction later for good old Dave and what he's doing. I figured I'd give you a quick preview as to the music of the game. Anyway, that was about 10 and a half seconds or whatever I got you up to there. So this is something that we're working with, and I'm actually doing the same thing, writing a contract with our music guy. Here's what we are saying we're going to do. Here's what all you're going to provide for us. Here's the work hours, all that sort of stuff. And then he's already in the process of creating music for us. And we're really excited. I'll probably do another whole thing on music later. So anyways, that's an update on contracts and agreements and trademark and all that sort of stuff. I'll probably be continuing to do this sort of thing, just so handling the producing side, because I want other people to be able to understand, hey, here's what I should do if I was in your position. So hope that was interesting. If it was, let us know in the comments or reach out to Lenny. If it wasn't, I might do it anyways, or maybe I'll go away. We'll find out. I know this isn't as glamorous as looking at blueprint scripting, although as a blueprint scripter, I get it. It's a good appeal. But this stuff is important too. So hopefully that was good information for you guys. All right, till next time.